The 31st Discourse. When the servant really knows the Lord of truth, almighty and glorious is he, he draws his heart completely near, gives him all he has to give, accords him every mark of intimate friendship, and confers upon him every honor. Then, when he has come to take all this for granted, he takes it away from him, reduces him to empty-handed poverty, sends him back to his ordinary self and sets up a screen between himself and his servant. He is testing him to see how he will act, whether he will run away or stand firm. Then, if he stands firm, he removes the obstacles from him and restores him to the situation he had once enjoyed. Surely you must have witnessed a scene like the one I am about to describe. A father has decided to put his son to the test, so he makes the boy go out of the house, locks the door in his face, and then waits to see what he will do about it. When he sees that his son has dealt with the situation by not budging from the doorstep, rather than going next door, complaining about him to the neighbors, and forgetting his training in good behavior, the father reopens the door, takes him in his arms and hugs him, and then proceeds to treat him with extra special kindness. Whoever a person may be, if he is not sincere in his conduct, not so much as a single atom of the nearness of Allah, almighty and glorious is he, will fall into his hand. As Allah, almighty and glorious is he, has said in one of his utterances, no one is less in need of associating with partners than I am. If anyone performs an action with the intention of involving someone other than me as a partner in it, well, it involves the partner ascribed to me and has nothing to do with me. I accept only that which is done for the sake of my countenance. The Prophet, Allah bless him and give him peace, is reported as having said, on the day of resurrection, the hypocrite will be told, O perfidious deceiver, O brazen liar. See if you can collect the reward for your actions from those whom you sought to please by doing them. O you who worship others apart from your Lord, almighty and glorious is he, surely you must have heard how he, exalted is he, has told us, I have not created the jinn and humankind except to serve me. 51:56 And his words, exalted is he, and they were commanded to worship only one God. 9:31 As well as his words, exalted is he, they were commanded only to serve Allah, keeping the religion pure for him. 98:5 It is the duty of every servant to serve his Lord, almighty and glorious is he, seeking only his countenance and his good pleasure, not for any ulterior motive and not for the sake of receiving gifts. Should there be anyone among you who is incapable of truly sincere devotion except when he is alone in private, let his work of piety be carried out in a secluded situation, where there is no creature's eye to see him, and no ear to hear the sound of his voice while he is reciting the Quran and proclaiming the glory of the Lord if the Almighty Lord so will. If a certain type of worshipper were to perform the ritual prayer in darkness, and any servant happened to discover him doing so, even a poor old good-for-nothing beggar, he would be sure to change his bearing in order to impress the observer. Whenever a person performs an act of worship without being completely sincere, his deed is quite worthless to him. O you who hold back from charitable spending, surely you must have heard the words of Allah, almighty and glorious is he, and expend of that which we have bestowed upon them. 2:3 That is to say, they spend their material resources on the family, on the children, and on the needy. The miser is beyond the pale, an outcast, far removed from his fellow creatures and from the Creator. Ask your Lord, almighty and glorious is he, to grant you some of his bounty. You must ask him, regardless of whether he answers you or does not respond to your request. Asking him is in itself an act of worship, whether the asking takes the form of a prayer of supplication offered in the state of remoteness, a confidential whisper in the state of nearness, or a wordless gesture in his immediate presence. One who is in the state of remoteness must call out for help, crying, O Lord and Master, grant me a gift. Let me draw near to you. One who is already near to him has reached the point of ultra-intense energy, he merely whispers to him in a quiet undertone, because he is so close. As for one who is seated right there by his side, he is so overwhelmed by all that he cannot speak at all, and must therefore use the language of gesture to communicate. Even in the state of this worldly remoteness, the Muslim can use the sign language of appropriate behavior. When the heart of one who is loved has attained to the chamber of nearness, he has only to make the slightest gesture. May Allah bestow His mercy upon those who can grasp the meaning of what I am saying, and can act accordingly, ridding their hearts of all doubt and suspicion concerning me and my words, and submitting to their Lord, almighty and glorious is He, whatever they do not understand and are not yet able to put into practice. Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, has said, "Ask Allah of His bounty, and do not covet that whereby Allah has made some of you excel others." For 32 the believer will see in his record, on the day of resurrection, some good deeds he had not done and knew nothing about. He will be asked, "Do you recognize them?" So he will say, "I don't know how I came by these." Then he will be told, "These are compensation for the requests you made in the abode of the lower world." This is because, in addressing his requests to Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, he is remembering Allah, professing His oneness, putting things in their proper place, giving credit where it is due, attributing nothing to his own power and strength, and forsaking pride, arrogance and haughtiness, all righteous deeds, for which there is reward with Allah. Almighty and glorious is He. The people believe, acknowledge the truth, acquire knowledge, behave with true sincerity, and devote their material resources to the welfare of the righteous. In spending their money on such causes, they produce convincing arguments to overcome the objections raised by their own lower selves. In one instance it may be represented as an alms due, the payment of which is obligatory under Islamic law. On another occasion, as a non-compulsory charitable donation and an act of altruism. In yet another instance, as a vow sworn with such a solemn oath that its fulfillment is absolutely inevitable. One way or another, they always come up with the goods. Through all of this they are moving nearer to Allah. Almighty and glorious is He, because of the strength of their hearts, the firmness of their conviction, and their subjugation of their own lower selves. It sometimes happens that one of them receives the order to donate a specific item from his property, so he promptly obeys the command of Allah. Almighty and glorious is He. It may also happen that one of them will simply start handing out gifts, without any conscious motive for doing so. The following story is told about one of these righteous men. Somewhere out in one of the desert regions, he had embarked on the performance of his ritual prayer, when along came a party of tithe, tax collectors. One of them came and took his cloak from off his shoulder. But then, when he had just finished his prayer, the man who had taken his cloak said to him, "Please accept my apology for taking your cloak." And he thereupon handed it back to him. "By Allah," said the man who had been praying, "I did not feel anything when you took it from me, and I did not feel anything when you gave it back. If you want to take it, go ahead and take it." The people have no conscious awareness of anything other than the immediate focus of their attention. When they stand in the presence of their Lord, Almighty and glorious is He, they are absent from everything apart from Him, absent as if gone away forever. The outer form is still present, but the heart is completely absent. One of their number was a man by the name of Muslim ibn Bashar, may Allah the Exalted bestow His mercy upon him. Whenever he entered his own home, his children would lose all their normal high spirits. They worked so hard at being well behaved that none of them could even dare to laugh. Their father was sorry to see them in such a state of inhibition, so whenever he intended to embark upon the ritual prayer, he would turn to them and say, "Busy yourselves with things you really like to do, and stop being so depressed. Don't worry about me, because I won't even notice what you are doing." Then he would start his prayer, and the children would play their favorite games, enjoying lots of fun and laughter, while he was totally unaware of what they were up to. One day, when he was praying in the congregational mosque, one of the columns in the building happened to collapse. It fell right beside him, along with those parts of the roof it had been supporting, but he was quite unaware that it had come crashing down. On another occasion, a fire broke out in someone's house while he was a visitor there. People came running and managed to put out the flames, but he was deep in prayer throughout all this excitement and quite unaware of what was happening around him. The people are wholly devoted to the Lord of Truth, Almighty and glorious is He. They are wholly devoted to the welfare of their fellow creatures, and the Creator is always there to support them. They put to good use whatever material property they have in their hands, and whatever knowledge they have in their hearts. They have obtained the greatest abundance of all, so the goods of this world do not seem very important to them. They have acquired the greatest fortune of all, so the fortune of this world is quite insignificant in their eyes. They have become detached from all that exists, and their hearts have therefore been endowed with the power to bring things into being. As long as this external world remains attached to your hand and your heart, you will never have any experience of such creative power. When somebody once asked one of these righteous men, "Where do you get your food?" he replied, "From the great full moon." In answer to the next question, what is the great full moon? He said, B. And there it is. In the Quran, Allah says of himself, Almighty and glorious is He, to Him belongs all that is in the heavens and the earth, all obey His will, the Creator of the heavens and the earth, and when He decrees a thing, He but says to it be, and it is. When you are in conformity with His commandment, all beings are at your command, and when you detest what He forbids, all loathsome things will flee from you wherever you happen to be or make your stay. Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, has said in one of His books, O son of Adam, I am Allah, there is none worthy of worship besides me. I say to a thing, be, and it comes into being. Obey me, I will make you such that you say to a thing, be, and there it will be. When the servant affirms the oneness of his Lord, Almighty and glorious is He, and is sincere in doing so, it sometimes happens that he exercises his creative power on his behalf, so that the servant enters into his creative action. At other times he will put the creative power at his servant's disposal, so that he can exercise it on his own behalf. This he does only for his special favorites among his creatures. Everyone who enters the garden of paradise will experience saying to a thing be, and having it come into being. Our present discussion is about the exercise of creative power in the here and now, not in the future. Where the affairs of this world are concerned, you must consider those who are beneath you. In matters of the hereafter, on the other hand, you must look up and pay attention to those who are above you. The following story has been told concerning another of these righteous men. On the day of the festival he had bought some kind of herb or vegetable, and he mused aloud, as he was sitting there eating it, I wonder if there can be anyone else like me, on a day like today, eating a plain vegetable with neither oil nor salt. He happened to turn his head at that moment, and what should he see but someone eating the bits of peel as he threw them aside. He burst into tears at this sight, and begged pardon of Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, for what he had just said. O son of Adam, how stingily you treat your own self. The Lord of truth, Almighty and glorious is He, has asked for a loan. Who is he who will lend unto Allah a goodly loan? 2:245 and 57:11 If you lend him the loan he asks for, accepting his promissory note in exchange for an offering to the poor, Allah will repay you many times over. He will give you much more than you have given, both here and now and also tomorrow. Do business with him and you will see the profits. Do business with him without checking his credentials. Consider the example set in this regard by Jafar, may Allah the Exalted be well pleased with him. If he needed 500 dinars, but had no more than 50 on him at the time, he would donate them all to charity. Then, sure enough, the 500 would come his way a few days later. Even if they had not come to him, however, he would not have doubted his Lord, Almighty and glorious is He would not have raised any protest against him, nor harbored any feeling of resentment toward him. The people are accustomed to dealing with their Lord, Almighty and glorious is He, in accordance with His book and the Sunna of His messenger, Allah bless him and give him peace, and on the basis of a sure conviction experienced in their hearts. It is related concerning one of these righteous men that a beggar came to him one day, asking him for some food. He had nothing in store except for 3 eggs, so he ordered his maidservant to give all 3 of them to the beggar, but she gave him only 2 of the eggs and hid the other one away. An hour later, a friend of the righteous man made him a present of 20 eggs, whereupon he turned to his maidservant and asked her, Where is the other egg? How many did you give to the beggar? She replied, I gave him 2 eggs, and left one for you to eat for breakfast. So he said to her, O woman of little sure conviction, you have made us lose 10. The Prophet, Allah bless him and give him peace, is reported as having said, a hopeless case is he who can offer nothing but excuses to a creature like himself. Jafar ibn Muhammad ibn Ali, known as the Veracious, was the 6th of the 12 descendants of the Prophet, Allah bless him and give him peace, who, according to the majority of the Shia, are considered the rightful Imams. He was celebrated for his expert knowledge of tradition, and came to be regarded as a master of the esoteric sciences. It is related concerning Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, may the mercy of Allah the Exalted be upon him, that a beggar came to him one day, asking him for some food. He had nothing in store except for 10 eggs, so he ordered his maidservant to give them to the beggar, but she gave him 9 and hid one away. At the moment of the sun setting, a man came and knocked at the door, saying, Take this basket from me. So Abdullah, may Allah the Exalted be well pleased with him, went out to meet him and took the basket from him. Then he saw that it contained eggs, so he counted them and, lo and behold, there were 90 of them. He asked his maidservant, "Where is the other egg? How many did you give to the beggar?" She replied, "I gave him 9 and left one for us to eat for breakfast." So he told her, "You have made us lose 10. O miserable wretch, when a poor beggar approaches you to ask you for a loan, you must lend him something, and not say, 'What are you going to give me?' You must go against your selfish instinct. Start by making him a loan, then tell him later that he can keep it as a gift. Some beggars are not very good at asking for something as an outright gift. They would much prefer to apply for a loan, with every intention of paying it back. They would rather trust in Allah and borrow on His account. If you are approached by someone like this, who can only couch his request in terms of borrowing, you should agree to call it a loan. Do not oblige him to face the fact that you are actually giving him a gift, for that would only make him feel more awkward than he feels already. Later on, when he applies to you for an extension, you should relieve him of the burden, ask him to accept that you are waiving the debt, and absolve him of any further obligation. By handling the matter like this, you will obtain the spiritual reward for the original loan you made him, and for the second loan as well. As the Prophet, Allah bless him and give him peace, has told us, Allah's gift to his servant is the beggar at his door. Woe unto you! How can the poor beggar be anything but the gift of Allah? Almighty and glorious is He, when He is taking part of your worldly wealth and investing it in your account in the hereafter, where you will find it when you really need it. The sum of money that you are giving him now will soon vanish and disappear, while you will be promoted by several degrees in the sight of Allah. Almighty and glorious is He. Woe unto you, O servants! Have you no sense of shame? You are worshipping your Lord so that He will grant you the garden of paradise, so that He will grant you the heavenly maidens and young attendants. The garden of paradise is the abode, but where is the neighbor? Someone who seeks the countenance of Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, is different from one who seeks the garden of paradise, different from one who seeks the things of this world, and different from one who seeks the universe of creation. How few are they who seek the vision of the Lord of truth, Almighty and glorious is He, and His nearness. The vision of the Lord of truth, Almighty and glorious is He, is the prospect that delights of the eyes of those who really know Him and love Him. The prospect that appeals to pious abstainers, on the other hand, is the vision of the garden of paradise, dwelling with the heavenly maidens therein, and enjoying the food and drink it has to offer. What a vast difference there is between them! O you who wish for the things of this world! Your time has been wasted on what amounts to nothing at all. O you who wish for the garden of paradise, the heavenly maidens, and the young attendants! You have wished for something other than your Lord, Almighty and glorious is He, and your preference has been for something other than Him. If you had any goodness in you, you would not feel happy if you were absent from Him for a single instant. Woe unto you! You do not realize what you are missing. Alas for you! The sheer delight of a glimpse at the Lord of truth, Almighty and glorious is He, is worth far more than all the joys of the garden of paradise put together, more than all its heavenly maidens and youthful attendants, all its sensual pleasures and satisfactions, and all its blissful abundance. How then can any case be made in favor of the delight provided by the sights and moments of this world, the abode of trials and tribulations? It offers opportunities for indulging the appetite of the belly, the urge to fornicate, and the inclination to break fast during the daylight hours. It allows for the pursuit of passion, for the consumption of whatever it may take to satisfy the desires and lusts of the flesh, and for basking in the company of those wicked companions who are devils in human shape. In other words, it would seem that its object is to ignite a blaze of lust in the firewood of the lower self. O Allah, give us strength to fight the battles we must wage against our own lower selves. Sustain us and guide us aright, for the benefit of all mankind. Enlighten our hearts, and let us serve as a light that shines as a beacon for all mankind. Let us drink from the cup of your intimate friendship, so that we may quench our own thirst, and so that anyone else who is thirsty may quench his thirst through us. Bless us with gifts and with contentment. Inspire us with a sense of gratitude when we experience the receipt of gifts, and of contentment when we experience the withholding thereof and the closing of doors. Confirm us when we speak the truth, and wipe away our lying and our falsehood. Ameen.